Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're still working on our trauma series. We are on chapter 14. I'm Catherine Trujillo. I work for the Early Childhood Council of the San Luis Valley, and I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Deb Benali, and I am one of the mental health consultants at the Early Childhood Council.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaylee Hand and I'm an early childhood mental health consultant at the council as well.
All right, are you ready to get started, everybody? We're going to learn about homework today. Be careful with homework. I may not have a safe place at home to work on schoolwork. I may not remember what we did in school, even if I seem to understand it when we completed the sample problems. And if you've looked at the previous videos, we talked a little bit about brain development and the impact of trauma and what that does on memory and even a child's ability to focus. So just even knowing that they may not have a safe space and they may not truly remember what they learned in school that day. Children with developmental trauma are often hypervigilant, even alert for threats, ever alert for threats to their safety. And an interesting thing too is our bodies constantly scan for safety, even when we're asleep. Our nerves are scanning for whether our environment is safe. So children with trauma are always looking for safety. That's their first concern. Is this a safe place for me? Basically, they are distracted by survival. Have you ever experienced a trauma? If you have been in a car accident, you may be able to recall how you felt at the moment of impact. Your heart might have been pounding, your ears may have been ringing. Stop and try to reflect and recall any kind of trauma that you may have experienced and what that feels like in your body. Next slide, Catherine.
Maybe. There we go.
Your stress response was in overdrive and your amygdala was activated. The amygdala is your fight, flight, or freeze response area. So your amygdala is the one that takes over all the rest of the brain when you're under stress or trauma. It takes over and starts to control. So when you are expecting a child to respond to you using their executive skills, which is your prefrontal cortex, and they're operating out of the amygdala, they are not going to hear you and they're not going to be able to respond to you. They're in overdrive. Okay, next. You were flooded with adrenaline and other stress response hormones. Remember that? Remember when you have trauma, you remember ever having trauma, what you felt like, that feeling? These are what these children feel like pretty much every day. Imagine feeling that way in the middle of math class. It would be very hard to concentrate. Even when children with trauma appear to be paying attention, they can be hijacked by their stress response system. They can come in and out of being present in the lesson. They may not even be aware this is happening.
In addition, prolonged exposure to early childhood trauma can impair working and short-term memory. Working memory is what we use when someone gives us a phone number. It's working our brain to remember. We may repeat it out loud or have the person repeat it so we can hold on to that information while we log it into our phones to type it in. Some of us may even be repeating it in our head to log it into a certain filing folder in our head before we can get to a place to write it down. Short-term memory is where we have stored information. We use a few times or hold on to pass the test, but we do not remember a week or a month later. So that's that. Oh, I'm studying because I have this exam on Friday. And then 2 months later, you're like, oh, I don't remember anything about that class because it was stored into our short-term memory versus our long-term memory.
I can relate to that, Kaylee.
Children with developmental trauma need to be physically engaged in the learning, have the learning connected to their personal experience, or be involved in much repetition to move information from working memory to short-term memory and eventually to that long-term memory. It is common for children with developmental trauma to get home and not remember what they were working on in class, even if they were able to complete that activity during independent practice. It's not your child trying to avoid conversation if they say, I don't know what I did at school today. There is a chance that they genuinely do not remember what they learned at school today. Parents may need to reteach. However, they were not present during the original instruction and cannot possibly repeat the lesson in the same way using the same vocabulary. It's important to know like children learn in all different ways, and just because you don't know exactly how it was taught, your ability to reteach may even help that child understand in a different way because they've been now taught in multiple perspectives. And for other children,
I'm sorry, Kaylee, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I lost track of which slides we're doing, guys. So go ahead, Kaylee, I'll let you finish.
For other children, their homes do not support the consistent completion of homework. They may not be safe, or the adults in the home may not value the completion of schoolwork by providing an appropriate space or allowing time. It's important to hold on to that not all children are going to complete homework simply because they don't want to. There may not be the appropriate support and space to do so.
One size fits one. And I know we've had this a few times in a few of the chapters if you watched our previous videos, but it is so important to remember that. We are not all the same. If a student is consistently missing homework, look into what might be in the way. So again, like I think Kaylee mentioned earlier, they're not trying to be defiant. There's obstacles that they have to work through, and maybe they're stuck somewhere and we can help guide them to get over that obstacle and complete their work. Change the assignment to fit the student. So this is really knowing your students, what works for them, what doesn't, and tailoring your lessons to what they need. Provide a place and time in the school at the end of the day for homework completion. So this would be a good option for the kids that maybe don't have the support at home to get assignments done, or maybe they go somewhere else in between school and home. And that makes it even harder for them to get things done. And this video slideshow was created by Kristen Love. She wasn't able to join us today, but hopefully next week she will be with us. And as always, this is our reference sheet. And we're pretty much pulling all of our information from Teacher's Guide to Trauma book. And as always, we have our contact information here at the end of the slide. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, would like any additional videos to go out on our YouTube channel, we'd love if you'd reach out to us. Is there anything else, ladies?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank
We'll
you
see
all.
next time.
Y'all, bye.
Bye.